Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pivot. Today, we have the extraordinary guest, Nick Yarris. You might have heard his story. He served 22 years on death row for a murder he didn't commit. Now, his life is filled with numerous pivots, internal and external. And we're going to hear from him, his journey, his story, get in his mind of what allowed for that extreme resilience to be sitting here today. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone.
Nick, I think that a good point to start with is going way back to who was Nick prior to being picked up, being wrongfully accused. When you were go back to the Nick that was 18, 19, 20 years old, who was that Nick? And what did you see for yourself as a future? What did you envision for yourself?
Wow, if I could go back and talk to myself now at 19, there was that crucial moment that I experienced for the first time in my life. I was autonomous from my parents. I was out on my own. I got in so much trouble because I couldn't stop hating myself. I realized this only after a long time of reflection. But the one dynamic about myself that I most remember from all of my years until that point was how much I disliked myself, or how much I didn't like myself in comparison to someone else who I thought had everything. And I hated them for having it. And I hated the world around me, and I was very aggressive and angry. And I knew it was because at the age of 7, I got physically attacked and had been raped and beaten with a rock in the head and left with a terrible affliction called aphasia, where I had overwhelming instant gratification needs. I couldn't let another person finish a conversation or statement without interrupting them and vigorously taking over, because my mind had no patience left. I was just full on aggressive. And since I had started using alcohol and then drugs from the age of 10,
Wow.
I had already done 9 years of drug damage, to the point that at the age of 19, going into 20 years old, I was injecting methamphetamine into my veins, drinking tequila, and living in Philadelphia in an ultra-violent world, trying to dominate that world.
Yeah.
It's a horrible point to begin, but it also is such a pivotal moment, because that is where living that type of life and having that happen to me made me susceptible to the worst things that could happen to someone on the streets. If you're 19 and 20 years old and you're a tear away from your family, you are easily susceptible to being picked up and put into the judicial system.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me in a stolen car. See, as a drug addict, my primary accumulation of money to get drugs was stealing cars so I could sell them.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I got pulled over by a police officer in Chester, Pennsylvania in 1981, who said that I aggressively attacked him and took his gun off him and tried to murder him, and that he had to heroically overpower me and take the gun from me. And he had accused me of attempted murder and kidnapping of a police officer at the age of 20. I really, at this point, want to clarify, I deserve to get arrested for stealing a car. I deserved to be thrown in jail, but that was all a lie. Now,
And then you had even the bigger lie that happened, right?
the worst, no, I compounded it by trying to weasel out of that lie. I made the conscious effort to, while in my cell, being tormented by this lie that I didn't do this. I had a newspaper in my cell, and there was a missing person murder case in it, and I chose to make up a lie about that poor victim so that I could weasel out of this other lie so I could go back out and be a junkie. And I have to admit that. I never want to glorify myself. I did the lowest thing of all. And I paid for that, I promise you. Now, a jury would find me not guilty only 3 months later of that police officer's lie. But because I had made up a lie about that woman's murder, they got a man to say that I confessed to him who was guilty of burglarizing the prosecutor's home in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, to say I confessed to the rape and murder of a woman I never met. Imagine you're 20 years old, you've been thrown in prison, you try to hang yourself in shame, they cut you down because they don't want you to die. You're being tormented at first because the police told everybody that you're an informant that tried to pin a murder on someone, so you're being beaten daily in jail. And then they get an inmate to say you confess to him so that you can be charged with that murder. And then you're thrown into the pit of hell at 20 with gang members and everybody taking daily shots at you for being a rapist murderer. Cristina, I couldn't believe the amount of pressure upon me. And when I tried to kill myself, this guard cut me down and said, "No, you ain't getting out of this. We got something for you." So my mother came to the county jail and she said, "Nikki, I don't know what's going on. I know you're not a rapist murderer. I know you're not capable of that. So do me a favor. No matter what you got to do, come home to me. Don't you dare kill yourself because I bore the pain of bringing you to life."
Wow.
So I went to trial for the charges of kidnapping and attempted murder of a police officer, and I was found not guilty after only 20 minutes. The jury saw right through the lie. But the prosecutor went mental in the courtroom. He threw the case file against the wall. He assailed the jury for letting a murderer go. I hadn't even been on trial yet. And a week later, he took over the murder prosecution in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and he decided to seek the death penalty against me on his own. And I had the same judge as the first trial. So because they were handball friends and they played handball together, they discussed my case over handball, I imagine, and they decided, let's make sure that we get a death-qualified jury because they're more likely to get a conviction, and they did. So they set my trial up for June 28th, 1982, right before the holiday of 4th of July, knowing that they had the pressure of getting the jury through this process over the 4th of July holiday weekend. And the judge actually told them, look, I know it's Tuesday and Friday is the 4th of July, but I'm going to have you all home so you can go celebrate. That was his opening remarks to the jury.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
So you can talk about cards stacked against you. You grow up at 7, you go through the unimaginable, and then you're coping with that the best that you can. And most people know that a lot of times coping with pain is experimenting with substances to try to numb that. You're having this hard life, 19, 20, even earlier than that. You started alcohol use at 10. And here you are trying to navigate, trying to figure out things and trying to cope with the pain. And you get pinned as an easy target because you have some disturbance in your life and you have some suffering that you're going through. You get pinned for this murder. At first you get pinned for this cop decides to make up stuff about you. And what is going through your mind at this point that you're sitting there in the courtroom and you know you didn't do this? You're hearing these opening remarks. What's going on in Nick's head? What were you kind of saying to yourself? What were some of those through lines that as you're sitting in this unimaginable, unreal scenario that I can't imagine how is this even possible?
Right before the jury was shown all these images, first of the victim, then the victim on the autopsy table, and then the photograph of the children finding her dead body in the snow. A huge storm came through the Delaware Valley, and the Delaware County Courthouse was struck by a bolt of lightning. The power was knocked out. The sheriffs jumped up and pulled their guns out like I had orchestrated some attack to free me from this situation. They hustled me out of the courtroom. They took me above the courtroom itself into his big holding cell overlooking the courthouse. And there in the courtyard below me were all the people who had been evacuated from the building. And there was no electrical noise, no noise from the streets. And they all began looking up at the windows and they saw me. And they started gesticulating at me, some of them saying horrible things. I looked into the faces of adults that once had me as a sleepover as a child. I was looking down at people who once shouted at me as I drunkenly went past their homes. And as much as I wanted to feel dirty and low, I kept feeling like nobody has the nerve to look me in the eye. Why can't they look me in the face? If I'm the dirty bastard that did this, why can't they look me in the face? And I swear before the heavens, I heard, look them in the eye, look them in the eye. Just like that. So they resumed the court process. And I went down and I looked around the courtroom. And every time I made contact with someone's face, none of them could look me in the eye. When they found me guilty, they took the time to tell the jury that they were in such a hurry. They could all go to the Wagon Wheel restaurant next door and they could have dinner while they decided whether or not to put me to death.
Wow.
So the sheriffs came and asked me, what do you want to eat? And I said, it doesn't really matter, does it? Bring me some food. He said, Nick, I can't believe I'm about to tell you this, but the jury has asked the waiters to put their desserts away in little carrier boxes until after they put you to death. And I said, so they're going to put me to death? He said, I ain't supposed to tell you. I was 21 years old. I had just turned 21. My lawyer, Sam Stretton, came to see me under the courthouse. And he began crying. At first, he tried to reassure me that when he became a senator in Pennsylvania, he was going to get me help to get a pardon because he knew there was no possible way I could drive 25 miles in traffic, snow, around the Christmas holiday from Philadelphia where I lived to where this murder happened in the state of Delaware and then be back home having dinner and being in a store on my area in 25 minutes. That's not possible. There was a bank receipt. There was video camera of me. So he knew I was innocent, and he started crying. I stuck my arms out through the bars, and I comforted my trial attorney while he cried.
Oh, my God. I don't even know, like, you're comforting him. What's going on in your mind during that moment? I mean, you're hearing that they're taking
I,
your life away. They literally are sentencing you to death.
yes, ma'am.
So many
I
thoughts,
kept
I'm sure.
thinking, I know it's crazy, but I was thankful that I had lived in the hardest part of Philadelphia in the ghetto and that I was tough. And at first I thought, I'm going to make it because I'm so fucking hard. I can handle anything. And I thought my aggression was going to be my strength. I could go at this like I don't care who I had to face or. And I was so wrong.
Believe in that moment that you knew that it would just be a matter of time before this conviction was overturned? Because, I mean,
No,
you're knowing you're innocent, you're sitting there, or did you lose all sense of hope at that moment that you would get?
I had an attack in prison, and the only reason I survived is because I heard somebody or something say, turn to the left. So if I didn't turn to the left at that moment, I'd be dead right now. Now, I am not the most intelligent person in the world, but there are factors in this world we're not cognizant of that are real. That split moment where we turn from being gone to now is ever present and we don't know it's real. I shouldn't be here. The guard only came back down the tier when I hung myself because an inmate wasn't given his full dispensary of medication when the nurse looked in the bottom of the box and said, oh, I have an extra pill. So he had to walk with the nurse back towards my cell. If it wasn't for that little pill that we were just talking about, I would be gone, because then the guard wouldn't have been at my cell and saw me flopping up against the wall hanging from my radiator. How do you explain that? All I knew at the age of 21 was I was grateful that I was tough, because the judge got really angry at me. When he was sentenced me to death, Judge Kelly ordered that I would be sent to Huntington State Prison, which is at that time the only prison ever condemned by the United Nations for its active practices of torture. I would then spend the next 2 years of my life not being allowed to speak in my cell, and I got beaten severely for doing it. 620 some days in silence.
620 some days in silence. Now, I know in those moments of silence, there has to be so much that flows through your mind. Sometimes maybe repetitive thoughts or different thoughts. But there was something that continued to give you hope to continue. What was that, Nick?
The lesser man around me. I know this is crazy, but they had men in there that they had tortured that no longer had the ability to communicate with their outside loved ones. They weren't able to write a letter. They weren't able to help anybody know their situation or anything. So it started like this. There was a guy in the cell next to me, and because he couldn't write out a DC-136A request form with the proper date, his name, and his prison number, along with a clearly written request for what he wanted, he was given nothing. And it was driving him mad. He couldn't get a new roll of toilet paper. He couldn't get a tube of toothpaste. He couldn't get clean sheets. He couldn't get anything because he was illiterate and he was being tortured by guards that were enforcing the letter of the law. And it started eating at me. I said, fuck this. I got the worker on the block to give me the correct spelling of his last name and his prison number. I already knew his first name was Darryl. So I correctly filled out a request form, and I got him 2 sheets, a change of clothes, new underwear, new socks. I got him bar of soap, like a writing tablet, a pencil. I got everything that you could ask for correctly written down perfectly and submitted it by the worker. And then about 4 hours later, on a different shift, the guards came to this inmate's cell with a trolley, and he went berserk. He started yelling at him, "What are y'all doing? Why are you giving me all this? You hate me. Why are you doing this?" And they said, "What? Whoa. You asked for it." He said, "I didn't ask you for shit. What are you doing?" I said, "Darryl, let them do their job." He said, "What?" I hadn't spoken to this man. I said, "Darryl, let them do their job, and I'll talk to you." He said, "Don't fuck with me, white boy." I said, "Listen, just do what I say." He kept saying, "Man, this is like Christmas. One minute, you all want to spit in my food and beat on me. Now you want to give me clean towels so I can wash myself." I said, "Darryl, I helped you."
So you got a sense of meaning and purpose.
No, I found my humanity. That's what gets taken from you.
Yeah.
When you're angry, you're not a human being. When you're poisoned with drugs, you're not a human being, you're a person. I found my humanity by seeing other men being tortured. And I realized I have that in me to care. I don't want them to take that from me. It's deep, ain't it?
It's deep. And it had to take going to the most, what did you say, the United Nations
Rock
voted
bottom.
it, it's the worst prison. And in that, you found a gift. You found yourself, something that was lost since probably before you were that 7-year-old boy that
Imagine
got
this.
tormented.
I know this is crazy, but I was a good that hit death row. I got 4 men off of death row by doing their legal work. I drove across country in 2020 to get the last one out, Walter Ogrod, because I turned down death row stories with Susan Sarandon to give him his chance even after I got out of death row, because I look you in the face and say, "I love you, I'll come back for you," I mean it. So I realized my whole pivotal moment in this journey that was meaningful to me was finding my humanity was still viable.
Wow.
And that I could be a human being. It didn't matter that they saw me as a piece of crap, rapist, murderer, and then they were going to torture me for the next 20 years. I wasn't going to torture me. In fact, all of my childhood friends would die, and both of my brothers are now dead, and they all died while I was in prison, while God protected me on death row, and I became a beautiful person because I was given, this is crazy, a pivotal choice over my situation.
I love that.
It's true.
It's so powerful. And the fact that so many people don't realize that they have a choice over their situation. You were in argumentably the roughest situation, and you were able to find your humanity. You were able to find that you had a choice, and that even though everybody else could torture you, even though everybody else could view you as less than, you didn't need to torture yourself, and your heart grew, and your impact grew, and what you could achieve and do for not only yourself but others opened.
It's fascinating because at the age of 27, I got a visit from these women who were part of the Pennsylvania Prison Society. And this girl, Jackie, comes in And they interviewed 5 men before me, and each one of them went out there with every lament, every aggravating moment to be shared. But by then, I had mastered my situation so much. I was suave. I walked in, I saw the woman, Pam, that she was with. I recognized her as my friend. I started asking her about her children and being normal, and I turned and started flirting with Jackie because I was comfortable with who I was as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that comes from self-respect, and the only way you can have self-respect is if you still have your humanity intact. Jackie fell in love with me because of that one feature, and over the next 9 years, this girl drove 225 miles each way just to see me 6 times a month, while her and I endeavored to make me the very first man in America to use DNA to prove my innocence. Now, a lot of people saw all the people get out, and I'm grateful that they got out. But in February of 1988, only 6 years to the day of almost being convicted, I was the first man in America on death row to ask for DNA testing, and it scared the shit out of them so much they cheated me for the next 15 years.
Wow. So 6 years in, you asked for the DNA testing, and they waited
15 years. And they destroyed the evidence 3 times. Jackie left me after 9 years when the evidence spilled. She said, Mickey, I live in a house where my mom's now dead. I have legal boxes. And the only reason we got married is because I could be there when they put the hood over your face, put you to death. But I got to go and try to live. This is just too much. There's no evidence left. You're never getting out of here. And I got to tell you, I just can't come back. And I was so grateful. I wrote her a beautiful letter and I thanked her. And I told her what a wonderful gift it was to help me develop as a man.
Yeah.
And it's ironic that one pivotal moment between 2 people is now a stage play with Adrian Brody and Tess Thompson playing out this moment that I'm telling you about, where she came to death row and she said, Nikki, I just can't be here anymore. And instead of being bitter or clinging to something that didn't belong to me, I told her how beautiful she was for loving me. I told her how grateful I was for being alive. And I thanked her for having the sense to go be free. And I gave her my freedom.
Wow. And I'm sure.
Then I asked to be executed.
You asked at that moment?
Not long after, I got sick. And I found out, I guess for the sake of your audience, we should tell everyone that long before I met Jackie, I escaped from death row in 1985. I was on the FBI's most wanted list. And for 25 days, I was out on the run and I decided to come back and I turned myself in.
What caused you to do that?
I had a brother older than me by 15 months, and I didn't want him to be shot in the head by the police because he looked like me. And I was innocent, and there ain't no way I was going to outwit all of the police. So I put myself back on death row twice. And then the crazy thing is, they took me back to Pennsylvania, and they gave me a beating, and they broke all my teeth. And the dentist gave me hepatitis C by not changing the suction return. So I was dying of hepatitis C infection after listening to a man named Dale Carter die of the same disease underneath me in the cells, being taunted by the nurses if he wanted an aspirin for his pain while dying of impacted bowel syndrome, which I was facing. And I decided I didn't want to die like that, so I asked to be executed. And the federal court stepped in and ordered the last DNA testing to be done. And in February of 2003, from the killer's glove, they got DNA of the killer. that didn't match me, obviously, and then the DNA of the second unknown victim and the DNA of the victim, Mrs. Craig. Then in July, they ordered more testing of that year, and they found out from the victim's underwear to sperm matching the killer's gloves of the killer's DNA was there, and they freaked out. A man that had just finished asking to be executed was innocent, and they didn't want to let me go. They were so terrified. The police kept coming to the prison and asking where I was going to move, and I said, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to the courthouse and make sure you help find out who did this, because I promised that woman in that cell I wasn't going to let her down. Wow. So there's a movie out called After Innocence on Showtime where I got a bullhorn and I went back to the courthouse when I was released and I started fighting for the victim. In fact, I'm so grateful to do this podcast with you, because at the James Earl Jones Theater in New York City, Adrian Brody is going to play me on stage, and everybody wants to know why I would go along with something like that. I'm trying to get Mrs. Craig her justice. They came to me, they said, what do you want? If we did a stage play about you and what you went through on death row, what do you want? And believe me, I've taken the minimum amount of money. I said, all I want is one thing, really. Two, one, I'd like to be reunited with my daughter, who I haven't seen in 12 years. Her mom's bitter. But two, and most importantly, I owe it to Linda Craig to get her justice. See, they beat me, they broke my teeth, they tortured me, and they were going to kill me because of the importance of Mrs. Craig. And then when I got out, her importance evaporated because they don't care about her. So when I go to New York City, and I'll be there for my play, I'm not going there in finery and shouting about what a glorification it is for me to have a play. I'm going to ask a simple question. Can someone now help Linda? She's the one in need.
It's so beautiful. After all of this, and I'm sure anybody that's listening can hear the sincerity, the heart, the humanity that pours from you. That there is not this resentment or rage or anger for everything that was wrongfully done to you, but rather this opening of something so beautiful.
I know now, and it's so true. I have to tell you, honey, love your pain. Stop being afraid of it. It gives you the ability right now to share a tenderness with me. The sad thing is, we live for comfort. We live for now. And that's unfair to us as a species, as a developing human being. If all you want to do is live for now, what pivotal change can you make tomorrow? Because you're blindly going through it. You're blindly you want to deal with today's pain. Today's pain made me so strong that I'm about to have a major actor like Sam Worthington play me in a major motion picture about my life, and I have to go to Rome to be part of that. An actor play me on stage. These are mind-bending things.
Well, you've lived a mind-bending story.
But no, but those are a threat to me forgetting where I got my humanity.
I see where you're going.
When you are truly humble, you remember where you began, not where you're going.
Yeah.
What you fear is when you get there, you forget this part. Mm-hmm. All I can tell you is I'm very intelligent and aware of being intelligent to have achieved critical thought. And Carl Jung and many other intelligent men have said, If you can achieve critical thought, you can think of your future more clearly because you can put perspective on yourself today.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to be glorified in the future or given glorifications or chances to be glorified. I don't want to forget this moment in the studio with you.
Yeah.
I want to be this man. How do I hold on to that? And how do I not fall folly to all of that? Is simple. Hold on to your worst day because that's an anchor. Because if you don't hold on to that, you're going to go drifting and you're going to think it's not going to happen again. You're not going to have it happen to you again. All is good. That's not life. So my goal is to go through this year, and I know I'm going to have fantastic chances to be around very famous people and everything. My goal is to actually get through all that without forgetting who I was now.
Yeah.
And it's a fear that we all go through. We don't realize this. We think we have a promise of tomorrow. As I sit here, I know that is a folly because last night, millions of people lost a loved one.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time I have left, but I've been aware of time's ticking because I sat and watched it evaporate in front of my eyes. My goal at this age and this point in my life is to leave a decent legacy about myself. So I'm going to go forward and let them do their stage play about me. I'm going to go forward and let them have a movie about me. I want to go around and teach about neuroplasticity healing. And I have this beautiful, developed speaking platform for teaching others how to heal. And it's just like any other practice of development that is something I can actually teach you to do. In fact, I've been doing it without you realizing it today when we were talking and giving you all this empowerment I know you'll take forward. I'm going to do that for a while, and then that's the legacy I want to leave. See, I know I don't have to understand your belief system or your religion. I've read all of the world's religion while I was in prison. But I do know that you're energy. And as such, I know that as long as you're not damaging your energy and hurting yourself, wherever you go in the future, honey, you've made it possible for that energy to pass fluidly and softly to the next life. Because you're never going to die, your energy, right? This person, this human this vessel of this energy that you are will end, but the energy won't, right?
Yeah.
So I figured out, as long as I can do no more damage to who I am, and I'm pious and kind the rest of the way, I don't care what your beliefs are, but I'm not doing any more damage to myself in the hopes that I got it right, that this energy will continue in a good form.
Very deep, Nick. Very beautiful.
I can't believe I'm sitting here lucidly speaking to you when I've had literally 10 of the worst things happen to me as a human being that crush most people. From being sodomized and raped as a 7-year-old boy, to being sentenced to death at the age of 21, to being physically tortured all through my 20s and 30s, to get out of prison in my 40s and then be robbed and have all kind of experiences where I haven't, like I said, been in contact with my own child. My daughter died in my arms at 6 months old from SIDS in 2017, 16. Yeah, it's just, I flipped a car over. I have CTE, brain injury from the beatings they've given me. My body is racked with pain. I will never stop suffering, but I'll never stop being alive.
Wow.
So I realized...
That's a powerful distinction. I want the audience to really resonate with that statement. Suffering, but I'll never stop being alive, right? I think that so many people are so fearful to suffer or to experience pain, right? But that doesn't mean that if you experience pain or suffering that you can't choose to have a life and to move through it in an elegant way and to embrace it.
It comes down to what you want. And I know there's a lot of people that would hear this podcast and they're like, oh my God, I couldn't possibly imagine myself going through what that man went through. But they don't have my mindset. And this is the distinction. You go through life's experiences either as a victim or a victory.
Woo! It's so spot on.
It's true.
It's a
My
choice.
victory is being here today. I'm not a victim for being attacked as a child. I'm not a victim of the justice system. Those are monikers I could hand to myself. My favorite thing is this. I'm a man who's been broken 1,000 times, and I've risen 1,001 times. Every time I've found myself being at the end of a journey, within a journey, it's only because I didn't recognize I was meant to change directions. As we speak here, I've been in Los Angeles for the last 2 years pursuing something I thought was so genuine and sweet and beautiful and wonderful. I desperately thought I would need it. And now I realize maybe what I needed was the same exact feelings for myself that I was willing to give someone else.
Very true. So many people don't realize that, to have
So-
that awareness. And I'm hearing over and over again that you have mastered the ability to reflect and to take what situation that you have went through and see how is that teaching you something, giving you something, helping you evolve, sharpen facets of yourself. Every pivotal moment in your story, that's what I hear. You look and you say, okay, maybe this is what this is about. Because there is always something there if you choose to view it.
If I told you at the beginning of the interview that going to death row was one of the greatest experiences of my life, I'd sound like a madman. But at this point, I'm comfortable with having shared so much about myself. You could see what I mean. First and foremost, all of my childhood friends died from the drug epidemics or AIDS or whatever. And all of them got wiped out while God protected me on death row. Not in prison, but in death row in solitary confinement. Now, I spent 8,057 days in solitary confinement over 400 months. So
Oh my God.
I know. And it sounds like an enormity to you because it's been given a number.
Yeah.
But right now, to me, it's like an old movie I watched a lot. I'm fond of it. It's a great memory for me because I remember the boy who mastered his environment and became a man, fell in love, and on the day of my parting, men cried for losing me. I was so cherished because I was such a whip with my wit and my charm and making men laugh and feel alive. They were losing the spark of who I was. That's a great honor that on my very last day, they opened my door without guards standing there with clubs. I was free and I walked out and men were rejoicing and yelling, "Go, Nikki, go!" And they were crying and they were happy and guards were crying. And I realized something. I was alive, even on death row. So surely when I get out of here, I'd be able to do that. And it was a great moment to realize that your gift is something you'll never know to others until you're leaving. Isn't that what The Prophet by Khalil Gibran was all about? So one of my favorite books was Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. And on the day of leaving of the main character of Al Mustafa, The Chosen, he orates the lessons of life he learned while in the city of Orphalese, where he's been for the last 12 years. It's a powerful, beautiful book. The first time I tried to read it, I thought it was poofy and stupid and threw it in the corner. When my mind opened up, I read that book every year for 20 years as a Christmas present to myself. I had mastered many of the passages, and then said Almitra, speak to us of love. And with a great voice he said, when love beckons you, go to him. Although his ways are hard and he hides opinion beneath his robe, go to love. And I thought, if I could take something that powerful and make it alive, surely I can have the perspective that I have enough sense about myself to get out of here. And it was only because of literature that I realized I could be literate.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that what would otherwise be the biggest terror and fear for everyone was one of the greatest blessings of my life, of going to death row.
Really want everybody to have that sink in, because I really do feel that in people's dark moments or those bad days or what is perceived as this tragedy, there's really a blessing in it. It's happening to serve us in some way, shape, or form, because life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us.
To learn from. Yeah.
To learn from, to grow, to you gained yourself again. You gained your humanity. You gained who you were. You were cheered and celebrated as you walked out because you became alive in the face of what some people would look at as the face of death or giving up. You gained your power. You gained your strength. You gained your identity.
I never expected to come out.
You didn't.
No, this person that you're speaking to only was derived for one moment. I was going to be executed. And so I practiced for that. If you think about it, I was already being cheated of DNA, and I watched others be executed. I was instrumental in helping my friend Keith Zettelmeyer become the first Pennsylvania prisoner to be executed because he was suffering so badly. And then I was there when they executed Buffalo Bill, Gary Heidnick, and he thought he was getting glorified. It's so difficult to explain, but I decided that I needed to practice for my death. And I guess we all are practicing for our death in life. I would stand in front of a blank wall and I would say this really beautiful thing after I learned to master speaking and being pious in my speech. And I had to overcome a speech impediment that was derived from having aphasia. So when I got comfortable enough to learn how to breathe through my speaking, I came up with the most profound and beautiful death speech to arm myself with my execution's last moment with love. So what do you want to say if this was your last moment, Christine? Is it anger? Do you want your last day to be filled with so much fucking anger that if you were going to die right then and there, the last thing you did was spend your fucking day angry?
No.
That's what they taught me on death row. Never be angry throughout the day because you wasted every chance to have that last beautiful moment, and your voice might be the last voice you hear.
Wow. Wow.
I've been waiting to speak for a long time. Just like in my cell, I spend most days alone. I don't talk to anybody.
Has it been hard to acclimate back out because you lived and you prepared every day for death and you didn't think you were getting out? Like, what is that like now, having your, and you're about to go through another pivot, but the pivot of going back into civilization, going back out.
I was trying to explain this to you. I got out of prison at the age of 42. I did not exist in a single computer, record, or anything outside of the Department of Corrections. I had to use the Philadelphia newspaper announcing my release to go to the DMV to get identification so I could get on a train to go to New York City for an interview. Everyone spoke to me as if I was an idiot because they likened my experience to someone who had to be destroyed. So imagine that I got out of prison on my first night home. My very sadly dysfunctional family ended up arguing and fighting me drunkenly while I sat there doing developmental aptitude evaluations of them because I had studied psychology in prison for 6 years from Ohio University. And I was very literate, and enough so that I could recognize their dysfunction. And I was sitting there doing evaluations on people who were saying, now, Nick, this is called a cell phone, and you have to pay it at every month or they'll take it away from you. And speaking to me literally as if I was befuddled.
You're like, I'm not an idiot.
But that is the assumption that most people have for someone who's been put on death row and beaten and tortured for 20 years.
Yeah.
I must be damaged. No way could I be more developed than you. No way. And they started mocking me for having this speech pattern. See, anybody who's from the Philadelphia area would say, well done, because you couldn't tell I was raised in the ghetto and I had a guttural speech and I couldn't articulate. In fact, one of the most humiliating moments of my life was going through trial and not understanding most of the words being spoken, and then walking back into the court 6.5 years later and educating his honor on DNA and mitochondrial DNA and what was to come. Your greatest sense of achievement, I love that smile you just shared with your audience, is coming from knowing that at one point you overcame. Mm-hmm. And when you heard someone else overcome, it brings a pride out in you. I did that too, Nick.
Yeah.
That's a great moment. I have a unique experience that I'd like to share that I don't think anybody's going to be able to really appreciate unless they've had a really deep life. They poisoned me with interferon and ribavirin concomitant mixture of 1,000 milligrams injections 3 times a week and horse pills 3 times a day, 3 of them, to try and kill the hepatitis C infection that was once in my system, that was killing me in prison. For 7 months, they poisoned me. See, in the Western philosophies, you nearly kill the host to kill a virus.
Yeah.
I had the most profound dreams of myself as an older man. I could see things in my sleep that were shocking to me. I had never had dreams so intense or deep because I was so close to the ethos. I honestly believed that my pineal gland in my brain opened up and I touched the ethos, because since that experience, when I got out, numerous times, event after event have happened in which just before they happen, I can tell someone they're about to happen. Now, it gave me the courage to walk out of prison knowing I was going to meet those dreams.
Yeah.
The craziest thing is, it still happens over. And it's a lot of times sequential. But what it keeps teaching me is I'm somehow right where I'm supposed to be. I came out of the RV, I forgot something, walked back into it, and only because of that 4-minute interval of going back, I met Sean Penn in front of the Vista Theater. He recognizes me from the documentary The Fear of 13. I apologized to him because I just had 12 hours of oral surgery that resulted in my teeth, and I was lisping, and I apologized to him when he said, no, fuck that. And he pulled his front tooth out and said, look what happened this morning. That morning, his tooth popped out, and he was on his way to his dentist. But can you see the connectivity to all that? Yeah, somehow that's all relevant to this feeling that I have that maybe now I won't sound completely crazy about. But I know I'm on a journey. And as much as I would like to be humble, I've been given a blessing by God to go and leave a message somehow. I don't even know if it's right, but I only keep thinking it's what I've been speaking to you about. It's no real message. It's just what I've been saying. Find your humanity in your worst moments. Don't take drugs and pills to block your feelings, because you're going to lose that moment that pivotalized you to go forward, and hold on to your humanity.
I think that's one of the most powerful messages I've ever heard.
We're being cheated of it on our phones. We're being cheated of it on our news cycles. We're being cheated of it by so many factors that at the end of the day, you don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
And as soon as you feel pain, what's the first thing you do? Pop and take some capsules, or pop, here comes the wine bottle, or pop. You want to get away from it. Why?
Yeah.
Because we've been told, listen to this, we can make your life better. Take Apirin. Side effects may be your liver.
God.
And
when you see those things with the side effects, I go.
I know one thing. My great-grandfather and my great-great-grandmother didn't have pills, and they made it. And I'm a gift of their fucking struggle. So if they made it without pills, I can make it without pills. I swear to God to you, I went through 12 hours of surgery in which I now have 10 metal rods in my face, 6 up top and 4 down below, because Nima at Lasting Smiles Dentistry in Pasadena, California, saw me on Joe Rogan, and he heard about the guards kicking my teeth out, and he said, we want to fix your smile. That's not right what they did to you. So in April of last year, I went and had 12 combined hours of oral surgery, and I didn't take one pain pill. None. So don't tell me you need pills to get through surgery. When my stepdaughter broke her elbow, we didn't give her pills, and she went through it, right? We don't give children drugs. We give adults drugs. So I went through that whole process on my own, homeless, in poor conditions. You can handle a headache, believe me.
Yeah.
Last November, on the 29th, I was crossing Hollywood Boulevard, and I got hit by a guy who was crossing Rodney Drive. A nice gentleman. His name's David. He got out of the car. I got knocked out. I have a fracture in my shoulder. I still haven't had surgery yet. I have torn ligaments in my shoulder. I'm in agony. I can't sleep at night. I'm going through all this, waiting to be in a stable enough situation to have surgery, because I'm still homeless. As I sit here in front of the whole audience, I'm in fucking agony. But I'm not going to cry about it, because I won't be alive to anything but one thing, being owned by my pain. So there you go. I'm sitting here now with a broken shoulder, and I constantly have a headache in the back of my head. I tried to get lawyers to help me settle the case, but they drop. It's like I keep having crazy bad luck, right? Maybe that's okay, though, because even death row taught me there's a good to come. Cristina,
There's always a good to come. If you believe in it and you don't continue to put yourself in the past or in the old experience, and you allow yourself to be present to the now, knowing that the now is not what used to be. It's a new day, it's a new opening, it's a new beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you continue to live. You've literally had some of the most extraordinary pivots and shifts in environment, in living, in life, in prison to out of prison, to everything that you've just shared. You're a walking testimony to that life will change. That's the one thing with certainty that we can count on is
and
tomorrow.
Yet we want nothing to change.
Yeah.
We fight against change. We're afraid of it. Most people won't move more than 100 miles from where they're born. Most people won't adventure. Most people won't go a day without some kind of pill or alcohol or some kind of aid to feel that they can make it through the day. So I have mastered the nomadic mind. A nomadic mind means if I sincerely believe I have to be in this one spot to survive, then I can't survive. And that's bad. I can go anywhere. I can survive in any atmosphere. You can put me in a shark tank. I'm going to come out with a shark skin suit. Yeah? I believe that. I believe in myself so much because I got out at the age of 42. Within 10 months of being free, and I told you how dysfunctional my situation was, I was standing on stage in a beautiful suit at the Colosseum in Rome, speaking to the citizens of Rome after an actor had just finished reading Tolstoy's The Executioner to set up my moment to go on stage and have dove's relief behind me while I told the audience if it was a dream and I was still on death row, it didn't matter because I was giving them who I was this one night and I was going to live my whole night tonight. Wow. I had the wit to see myself do that. When I got out of prison, I had a choice. I was in Southwest Philadelphia where the murder rate was extraordinarily high. I could be like everyone wanted me to be, or I could be like who I felt I wanted to be. And a lot of people know this feeling right now.
Yeah. So many people.
Yeah, because of our family dynamics, we don't feel like we can be who we want to be. Yeah. We feel like we have to be this or we have to be that. I mean, I went to the University of Pennsylvania and I got some help from them students and I organized a 5-country economic boycott of Pennsylvania's trade partners. And within months of being released from death row, I wasn't just taking a courthouse bullhorn situation under my belt. I was speaking eloquently to the governments of England and Holland and Spain and all these beautiful places in France and Italy. Like I said, with an educated effort, I responded to what other people would normally think you can only respond to with anger.
Yeah.
I did constructive response. So, okay, you want to hurt me, and you have. You want me to feel low after you've hurt me, and I won't. What is my response? I think I'll affect your money, so I'll go and start. So I went to Sweden, who was trying to buy the Philadelphia shipyard, and they put forth legislation. I went to France, they huge trade partner with America and Pennsylvania for wine. I went to Italy. I went to England, where SmithKline Glaxo has a $1 billion building in downtown Philadelphia. And I asked them, who was manufacturing my death drugs, why would you deal with Pennsylvania? Long before it became chic. And what it taught me was this. I could see myself as that man. You understand that?
Yeah.
I could see myself as that kind of person who could mount the stage and all that. But the only place I imagined that was on death row. My worst point. People don't believe that at your worst point, you can be something so much different if you see that in you. not someone else seeing it in you. And we love that.
You have to see it in
we
yourself.
We feed off of someone else saying those things about us. But how many times have you truly found that about yourself? It's hard.
Yeah.
So when I realized that I could help answer what was done to me and my family to squash me and make me feel so small, was to go ahead and use this education I gave myself, I changed the whole game. Because not only did I retort to my attackers, I gave myself a global speaking platform where I went around the world. I've spoken before the United Nations after they screened the movie The Fear of 13 in Geneva, Switzerland. I then spoke to the United Nations in 2016, and I'm thinking, this kid from Southwest Philadelphia would have never had that dream, but the man on death row suffering did. Yeah?
Wow. Nick, everything, so much wisdom, so much inspiration. I think that everybody listening can walk away feeling the humanity, the growth, the darkest moments, giving birth to such, like, it's almost like the ashes and the phoenix rising. Like it's
1,000 times.
In you're rising and you're flying in ways like the ashes are on the ground, they're stuck to the ground, or like a caterpillar, right? It's stuck to how far it can climb. But once it changes in form and it becomes that butterfly, it can soar to heights like it never imagined. It sees things in a way that it never imagined. And it goes through that moment of darkness, right? When it's in that cocoon, it's in that darkness, it feels like life's over, but really it's just beginning. And I think that's what was happening for you, is there was this cocoon, and the cocoon was prison. But inside of there, you became who you really are.
The chrysalis. So this is deep. Just like on death row, at one of my worst times, I'm homeless, I'm up in Oregon. My wife got addiction issues, we split, she beat me in the face, all that, things like that, yeah. I'm feeling really badly, and I meet a man. I'd just gotten a job at a restaurant, and I'm learning this great skill of cooking. I met a man with a rare form of cancer who had been told he was going to die within 6 months for the last 9 years at that point. When I met him, it was my second day of being able to bring food home back to my RV, parked along the Pacific Coast Highway, right there by the ocean, a place called Pistol River, Oregon. I noticed he had a cane, but he wasn't old, and he had a dog with him, and I had 2 dogs at the time. And our dogs ran off together down to the ocean, with us following. We began a conversation. I found his name was Alex. He was from Washington State, and I started listening to this man. When he mentioned that he was from Washington, D.C. and Virginia originally, and that he was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I said, that's odd, because I'm from Philadelphia, and I just made Philly cheesesteaks at work, and I brought them home. I made an extra one for some reason. I didn't know I'd eat 2 of them. I said, would you like one? And that was it. Alex spent the next week of his life telling me how hard it was to be homeless with cancer after losing all of his family, and his only companion in life was his dog, and how he felt like no one would ever understand his pain. I let him get it all out. I didn't tell him a word about myself. A few days after I let him get it all out, I told him everything. And I said, you know who you are? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're Thomas the twin. He said, I don't know what you mean. I said, Jesus had a brother named Thomas the twin, and he was a beautiful spokesperson, and he went around talking about poetry and art, but he was never going to get the glory that Jesus got from the ecumenical society. They couldn't allow that, you know what I mean? Can't have a deity and a cool-ass brother. So he had to go into obscurity and carry the burden of knowing that he was a beautiful man inside, and he suffered just as much as his brother Jesus. I said, "You're Thomas." I said, "I love you, but I'm about to tell you a story of my own." And I told him at the end of it, he couldn't believe who I was and what we were. And we had this magical night. Along Pistol River area is noted for windsurfing because of the constant wind. We were parked about 20 feet above the ocean on a night in which the entire surface of the ocean became calm. It was crystalline, beautiful, clear, and above us was all of the stars of the galaxy being refracted off of the water. So clear, it was like having a double galaxy above and below. Alex turned to me and he said, "Nick, this is crazy. I feel so alive like I did in Scotland." And I said, "What?" He said, "Before I met you, I went to Scotland and I couldn't understand why I felt alive to be there. And then I did a genetic study and I'm Scottish, man." I turned to my friend and I said, "I'll tell you what, I don't know how, but I'm going to go to Scotland with you one day so we could feel alive." I made him a promise at that moment. Here we are right now. I have 80% of that documentary shot on film because I met a man named Mikey Perry in England, and Mikey Perry's a director, and I met him in England in 2023 when I was going back there for healthcare reasons, and I had a bag of jelly beans in my hand that I put down on the bar in this place I was, and Mikey's father had a woman represent him who worked for Jelly Belly, jelly beans, and turned to me and told me the story about how the jelly beans also saved his son Mikey's life because he's a diabetic. "Come here, Mikey." And Mikey's a director. Mikey comes to me and I said, "Mikey, you're going to do me a favor." I said, "What?" I said, "You're going to go to America and interview my friend Alex, and you're going to tell his story with me." And he did. He went to America, he filmed all of this, and we're going to have this beautiful documentary about me and Alex. The only thing missing is Alex and I have yet to go to Scotland and finish it because when we planned to have it done, he went into a coma because he had meningitis. But guess what? Meningitis and cancer don't get along. So when he came out of the coma, 26 of the tumors were gone. The remaining ones shrank. Now his life is filled with pain and he's still got a lot to go. But God gave us a long enough venue for us to go finish that movie now.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean? It never ends for me. Just like finding that man on death row who was just so besotted with anger and being tortured and writing that request slip. I did the same thing for Alex. And now he's like a son to me and we're great friends. And he'll be in New York City when the play opens. And we're going to go to England and we're going to finish the documentary. And we're going to tell Alex a story because I looked him in the face. I said, "I love you. And I'll be back for you." Just like I did on death row. What a life, girl.
And what I hear in your life is you go with life. So many people resist going with the flow and listening when life whispers. You heard the whispers. You allowed for the synchronicities that were openings and gifts from one thing to lead you to the next, whether it was jelly bellies or your dogs interacting or going for a walk that caused one ripple effect to the next. Now, as we sit here, Nick, you've shared so much. I would love to know, is there anything more that you feel that people need to hear about life, about pivoting, about your story that you'd like to close with?
I shouldn't be here. I've been beaten, stabbed, shot, strangled, hung myself, drug overdoses, sentenced to death. I lived through prison riots. I've had automobile accidents. I've been hit by a car. I've lived in squalor, in homelessness, hungry, begging. I've had love taken from me. I've had every horrible experience. Don't tell me whatever you're going through is a valid fucking reason to hurt somebody. Don't try to tell me that you have an excuse today to be a fucking asshole to somebody and hurt them, or be cold to somebody because you feel pain. Don't tell me you have a justification to hate somebody because of their beliefs or what they're going through in life. Don't tell me especially that you can judge someone else because you don't like them. You're wasting your time. If you do that based on the object in your phone that's telling you to do it, you're a fucking idiot and you've lost your mind. If you hate me because I'm apolitical, I don't support any parties. I don't believe in any of it because I sat in my cell and I watched it be a lie. If you hate me for my beliefs, then you're wasting your time when you could be loving something else. The message is simple. We're all going to die. We're all living under a death sentence. No one gave it to you in a courtroom. You were given it on the day you were born. Act like it. My last thing is this. My name is Nicholas James Yarris. I come from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm 64 years old. I'm about to have a life-changing event of having both a major motion picture about my life and a stage play in New York City put on by some of the finest actors in the world. I only hope for one thing to come out of this. Good. Some kind of good that would make me feel rewarded. I'm not doing this for the luxury or money or notoriety. I'm doing this in the hope of finding a good. Those of you who spent the time listening to my beautiful friend Cristina and I speak today, I love you for giving us your patience and your time. And maybe some reflection will come to you about the things that you're letting go or you need to let go of. The only way you can come to a pivotal change in your life is with honesty, humbleness, and someone to listen to you. I hope, like me, if that someone is yourself, you're fair to you. The worst person to listen to is yourself when you know you're not being fair. So, I tell everyone this. Treat yourself like you're your best friend. Women especially. You're such a good, fucking great girlfriend to someone else. Be that to yourself and you'll be okay. And my brothers, love me like I love you. And then you'll see what I mean when I say, we know we need someone. We know we need someone. You can't be a solo wolf. You have to love a brother. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I've had a lot of self-respect for coming here today only because I know there's some person that will hear all this. One of you. I know you're hurting, and you heard me, and I love you. I love you so much for knowing that you're fucking trying to figure it out. And for some reason you cried because you heard it. That's because you made the connection with me because you're a human being still. Thank you for still being a human.
Thank you,
That's all
Nick.
I got.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll put some links down below to the movie when it's coming out and the play. If you're in New York, go and support it.
Oh, it's beautiful. The play is called The Fear of 13. And Adrian Brody was nominated for a Sir Lawrence Olivier for Best Actor and he gets naked on stage. So if you want to see a naked Adrian Brody.
Thank you. And until next time.